I'm so glad that we are finally in beanie season, so now you guys can be subjected to seeing every single one of the beanies in my beanie collection for the next 6 months. Hey, what's up you guys? I'm Caitlin from Leave Me Alone Plants, and today I have a PSA for all you guys. It is that time of year again when everywhere you go, be it the big box stores, be it Aunt Margarine's house, you will be seeing poinsettias absolutely everywhere. Now with that said, at least in my family, the traditional life cycle of a poinsettia is it's, a flower that you bring into your house in the beginning of December. You enjoy it for a couple of weeks, and just like so many things after Christmas, it sadly gets tossed in the garbage without a second thought. Now, for some people, of course, that's totally fine, but for us houseplant lovers here, at least for me, I always get a little sad at the thought of throwing out a live plant. So I am here to tell you today that you do not need to throw out your poinsettia, or if you are going to your family member's house for Christmas and they are throwing out their poinsettia, you can kind of swoop and snatch it up and take it home and enjoy it for the rest of the year. So today I'm going to be going over how to both care for your poinsettia throughout the year and how to get it to return to a bloom cycle the following year, right before Christmas, so that you don't have to go out and buy another one. And I know they're not super expensive, but personally for me, I think this is something that is going to be more of a fun challenge than anything. So if you are up for the challenge and you are ready to stop throwing out poinsettias, then keep on watching and we're gonna get into it right now. So when I started doing research for this video and reading more about poinsettias, I was shocked to find out that they are actually part of the Euphorbia family. Now, thinking more about it and what I know about euphorbias and what I know about having these plants from growing up as a kid, it kind of makes sense. Something you might know if you have euphorbias is that if you kind of like break a piece off or if they get a cut in them, they kind of leak this milky white fluid out of them. And I don't know why I feel compelled to tell you this, but I remember specifically as a kid, when my parents would buy poinsettias, I was obsessed with pulling the leaves off of them to watch it kind of ooze this white milky substance out of the plant. I don't know why. For some reason, I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. Probably wasn't great for my plants. I always remember my mom yelling at me for doing that, but moral of the story, they are in fact euphorbia. Now, side note, I know traditionally people are always like, oh my god, they're so poisonous, they're so toxic, and while they definitely can cause some irritation if that white sap touches your skin, or of course if you're ingesting it, it's not necessarily going to be a deadly situation. So again, do try and keep it away from children who are plucking leaves off like myself, and pets if you can. But with that said, it likely is not going to be incredibly fatal unless, you're eating like the entire plant. Now, these guys are, interestingly enough, native to Mexico. I don't know where I imagine these growing natively. I don't know, the North Pole probably, but are indeed from Mexico, which being here in Arizona is actually really exciting because that means that its native conditions are really, really great for my growing conditions right here. While I think most people think of these as more so container plants, if you do live in a growing zone that is 9A and above, then you should be able to actually plant this guy in the ground most of the year if that is something that you are looking to do. Now, I think the first place that so many people go wrong, if you maybe are watching this and you're not necessarily a houseplant person with plants in a pot when they get gifted them, is for some reason, well, not some reason, I know exactly why they do it, but many times when you see plants sold in stores or grocery stores like this kind of to non-houseplant people, they put these decorative sleeves on it. Now, of course, it makes it look prettier and it's like really convenient because you can water your plant and it doesn't flow through onto like your countertop or your table leaving watermarks. Here's the problem with this. Say that you water your plant and you let that water all pool up and collect in the bottom of here. Basically what's going to happen is your plant is going to rot from the bottom up and it is going to die. So you have two options here. If you like the look of this decorative sleeve, then perfect, no problem. When you go to water it, just take it out, water it, let the water drain through the bottom, and then you can place it back in here to enjoy the look of it for the rest of the year. Additionally, if you're like me and don't particularly love the look of these foily sleeves, then you can just set that to the side, take it out, and either leave it just in this pot or repot it into something else. But basically, I think that is the biggest area that so many people go wrong. They rot the roots and the plant just dies from there. So that is step number one. Now we have our foil sleeve off, the plant is, doing its thing, it's looking beautiful. How are you going to take care of it from this point going forward? Well, sticking with the theme of watering, these plants are going to like to, kind of have a consistent moisture but not be sopping wet. So basically for me, what that means is I go in and water this plant, I wait until the top couple inches of the soil have dried out, and then I'll go back in and give it a good thorough watering until that water is draining out of the bottom. Now again, you don't want to have it be a situation where that water doesn't have anywhere to go and the soil is like a soggy swamp. Really make sure that you're giving this plant the ability to dry out in between those waterings. Now that brings us into something that, at least for me, I didn't give a lot of consideration into when I think about poinsettias, which is their preference for humidity. Poinsettias actually do enjoy a decent amount of humidity if you can give it to them. Now, here in Arizona, I talk about this all the time. My natural household humidity is about 30%. And as a matter of fact, I actually have been keeping this guy outside on my patio right now, so he hasn't been getting crazy humidity. And overall, he seems like he's doing fine, but in their natural habitat, they are going to like something that has a little more humidity. So, of course, if you have a humidifier running in your house, that's great. If not, if you're doing something like a pebble tree next to it or just misting it throughout the day, those are other things that you can do to kind of really make this plant as happy as possible. That brings us into sunlight. So as I had said, these plants are native to Mexico, so they are used to a very, very bright, strong sunlight. Not only for your plant to grow quickly, but also if you have intentions of bringing blooms back onto this plant in the future, then you are going to want to give it a bright light. Now, I know something I talk about all the time on this channel is living here in Arizona, I get really skeptical of actually giving my plants direct light. And even for me here with this plant, I've been giving it a couple hours of direct sun every day, and it doesn't seem to mind it at all, and it has actually started to put out new growth since I have been doing that. So really, regardless of where you are, I would say don't be nervous to kind of really give it some intense light. It seems to really be enjoying it, at least with that winter sun that we have right now. So definitely, wherever you plan on putting this for the long term, if you are indeed keeping it, make sure that it can get a good source of bright light. Finally, when you're thinking about pots for these guys can get kind of stressed out if they get root bound. Now, I think something that I don't talk about here a lot on this channel is, what happens if plants get root bound and kind of what that looks like. So there's a good thing and a bad thing about buying these plants in such a mass market setting is that typically, because of that, they aren't always put in the best soil medium. And while it's not typically great, the good thing about it is you can typically just like pull it right out of here and check out what the roots look like. Now, looking at this one, you may be able to see that you are having some root circling on the bottom there. This guy isn't too bad of shape right now, but he's definitely starting to get to the point where after the holidays you would probably want to consider upsizing this pot and breaking up those roots a little bit so that they're not getting choked out too much. If you don't upsize that pot, you probably are going to have a hard time seeing this plant really thrive throughout the year, and it may just start to decline overall. So not something that I would likely do, the day that I brought it into my house, but it is something that you want to take into consideration and likely upsize that pot when you get a chance. Okay, so that is overall going to be the general care of these plants. Now I'm going to get into the side of these that can get a little more complicated, which is once these beautiful red flowers that this plant is known for fall off, how do you get it to bloom again? And in case you were wondering it, yes, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but unfortunately, you are not going to have these beautiful red flowers on it all year round. And in fact, I'm actually calling these incorrectly. So these red flowers or leaves that you see here actually aren't flowers themselves. These are what we call bracts. So if you have a plant like a bougainvillea is a great example. The pink flowers on those, or in this case the red flowers here, aren't actually flowers. They are just kind of a modified leaf. What actually the flower is going to be this middle section right here. And my flower actually hasn't fully bloomed on this yet. Basically, in nature, the plants that do this though put out these different colored leaves to attract insects like bees to that center flower part to make it easier for them to know where to go for pollination. Now, with that said, these are only going to come out one time a year, right around Christmas time. So the rest of this video, I'm going to be talking about how to get it to come into that bloom cycle. Now, there are a ton of videos out there on the internet about how to get these plants into the bloom cycle. In my experience, every single one of them mentions very specific dates that they swear that you have to follow, and the thing is, in every single person's video, those dates have a pretty big variance. So I am going to give you the general trend of what I have found from watching those videos and reading articles, but of course feel free to check out those as well if you are looking for a more specific idea. So of course, Christmas season all the way up until New Year's, you're just going to probably want to enjoy this plant like normal. Leave the flowers on there, let it be beautiful, let it do its thing, and aside from watering it and giving it some bright light, you really don't have to think about it too much. Now from here, basically, once you reach February or March, you kind of have two choices of what you can do. You can either naturally let this plant go into dormancy by itself, which basically means that everything is going to fall off of it for the most part. Totally fine, totally normal, that's just what's gonna happen. Plants do go into dormancy, they lose leaves, it's okay, it's a natural process. Additionally, if you kind of want to prevent that a little bit from happening, what you can do is these bracts that are on here, you're going to want to prune them off and you're going to want to cut down one leaf below where you have a green leaf. So when you're cutting it, basically cut the whole red top off and then go down one notch more to where you have a green leaf. That is where you're going to want to make your cut. Now, I don't want to do it in this video right now because it is like December, oh god, I don't even know, like 12th? Yes, it is December 12th. So I want to enjoy this for the rest of the holiday season. I'm not going to go chopping it up yet, but again, just cut one leaf below so that you have a green leaf that is getting cut off and you will be good. That is kind of how you're going to naturally prune it up for dormancy if you decide to go that route. So it's in dormancy, it's doing its thing. You're going to cut back watering a little bit, continue to give it a bright light. Now we're into about May. At this point, you are going to have these normal green leaves that start to form back on your plant, and this is kind of where either way you're going to want to go in and do a heavy prune and cut back on this plant. Now, some people like to cut it back like way down to the bottom. I have heard that the more you cut it back, the bigger the flowers and bigger the bracts that you will get the following season. So really up to you, but you are either way going to want to go prune this back to some degree. So we've got May, you know, summer goes by, you're continuing to give it a bright light, you're continuing to keep that soil moist and water it once it dries out on the hot couple inches. Now we have come into September. This is where the real work starts. So again, you kind of have two choices here. If you're somebody, you just love foliage plants, to be honest with you, these green leaves alone are pretty beautiful and I actually really do like them. If you're okay with it not getting these red blooms again, you're fine. You can just continue to care for it like normal and it will continue to be a foliage exclusive plant. Totally fine. If you want to bring these flowers and these bracts back onto the plant for Christmas season this year, you are going to have to take this plant and limit the amount of light that it's getting. Now, for the amount of light that you have to limit, I have found that this varies by person to person of what they say. I've heard giving it as much as 12 hours of light, and I have heard giving it as little as 2 hours of light. So I imagine you will be okay somewhere in between that scale. But with that said, when I say that you need to bring it into a dark area, I'm not talking like a kind of dark area like your bathroom where it is mostly dark but sometimes you turn on the light. No, it needs to be pitch black for extended periods of time. So if you have a closet that you can stick this guy in, that's fantastic. I think that's what most people do. Or another option that you can do is basically just get like a cardboard box or something that is completely opaque and place it on top of the plant, being sure that no light is leaking underneath the bottom of it. If it is, it will not go into a bloom cycle. Now you are going to continue to do this every single day. Yes, I mean every single day. Do not forget, from anywhere from 2 weeks to a month or so. Then you are going to return this plant to the normal conditions that you were giving it before. Consistent, bright light, keeping that soil moist, not too wet, and letting it do its thing. At this point, if all went well, you should start to have this plant putting out these bracts and flowers again. Now, this leaf right here is actually a really good example. The first couple leaves that it starts putting out likely will not be a super bright red. They will likely kind of be a darker green with a tinge of red. If you start to see that, you are definitely on the right path. It should start to put out bigger and brighter leaves from there. And that brings us into Christmas season and the whole cycle starts again. Now, I know that that process is a little complicated, and I think likely a lot of people are kind of going to be at the camp of for, you know, $6 or $7, however much plants are costing in the future. Maybe you just go out and buy another one. I guess for me, as a houseplant lover, it just seems like a fun way to try and experiment with plants again throughout the year and try and get it to go into that bloom cycle. So let me know down in the comments below if you are going to rescue any poinsettias this year, if you are planning on going through the whole process of trying to get them to bloom again, or if you are just saying forget it and going to buy one at the grocery store again next year that is already in bloom. Hopefully, if you had questions about this plant, I was able to answer them, but if there was something that you were still wondering that I did not answer, please drop it in the comment section down below and I will do my very best to get back to you in a timely manner. If you learned something new in this video, then please don't forget to hit that like button. And if you enjoy PSAs about plants and other plant-related videos, then hit that subscribe button. Coming out with multiple videos every week, and we would love to have you here for the journey. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. I hope you have an awesome Christmas or whatever other holidays you guys celebrate, and I will see you in the next one.